When my family skipped my college graduation for my brother's dog's birthday party, I thought that was the worst betrayal possible. I was wrong, sitting alone in my cap and gown, staring at 4 empty seats. I felt invisible. Then the dean made an announcement that silenced the entire room. He talked about a student who overcame incredible challenges, and I realized he was talking about me. But how did he know my story when I'd never told anyone? That's when I saw her, an elderly woman in the back, crying tears of joy while watching me graduate. She looked at me with pure love, but I'd never seen her before in my life. What happened next revealed a 22-year-old secret that explained everything: why I always felt different, why my family treated me like I didn't belong, and who I really am. What would you do if everything you believed about your family was a lie? And what if the people you trusted most had been hiding the truth about who you are your entire life? Let me tell you what I discovered that day. My name is Riley Chen, and today was supposed to be the best day of my life. I'm 22 years old, and I just graduated from college with honors. I worked so hard for this moment. I studied until my eyes hurt. I worked 2 jobs to pay for my books and food. I stayed up late writing papers when other kids were at parties. But as I sat in that big room wearing my black cap and gown, looking out at hundreds of families cheering for their kids, all I could see were 4 empty seats where my family should have been. The seats had little white cards on them that said "Reserved for Chen family." I had bought those tickets 3 months ago. I was so excited to give them to my parents. I imagined Mom taking a million pictures. I imagined Dad telling everyone around us that I was his daughter. I imagined my older brother, Marcus, rolling his eyes, but secretly being proud of me. Instead, I sat there alone, while other graduates waved at their families. The girl next to me had her grandparents, parents, and little sister all cheering for her. Behind me, a boy's whole extended family was holding up signs with his name on them. Everyone had someone there who loved them enough to show up. Everyone except me. Mom had called me yesterday morning while I was getting ready for my last day of classes. I was so happy to hear from her because I thought she was calling to say how excited she was for graduation day. "Riley, honey, I'm so sorry, but we can't make it to your graduation tomorrow," she said. My heart felt like it dropped into my stomach. "What do you mean you can't make it?"
"Well, it's Biscuit's birthday. You know how much your brother loves that dog. We're throwing a big party for him in the backyard.
We already invited all the neighbors and ordered a special cake from the pet bakery. Biscuit is my older brother, Marcus's golden retriever. Don't get me wrong, I love dogs. Biscuit is sweet and fluffy and always happy to see me when I come home from school. But this was my college graduation. I had worked 4 years for this moment. 4 long, hard years. "Mom, this is my graduation day," I said, trying not to cry. "I've been planning this for months. I already bought you tickets. I told you the date weeks ago." "I know, sweetie, but Marcus has been so sad lately since his girlfriend Emma broke up with him. Biscuit is all he has right now. We need to be here for your brother. He's going through such a hard time." That's how it always was in my family. Marcus came first. When we were kids, my parents missed my school plays because Marcus had soccer practice. They skipped my art show because Marcus had a cold and needed someone to bring him soup. They forgot my birthday dinner one year because Marcus had a big game the next day and needed to get to bed early. Now they were missing the biggest day of my life for a dog's birthday party. "Can't you have the party next weekend?" I asked. "Or even tonight? It doesn't have to be on his actual birthday." "Oh, Riley, you know how your brother gets when things don't go exactly as planned. He's been looking forward to this party all week. It's the first time he's smiled since Emma left him. We can't disappoint him now." But apparently, they could disappoint me. I tried calling Dad next, hoping he would understand how important this was to me. "You know how your mother gets when she has an idea," he said with a tired sigh. "It's easier to just go along with it. We'll celebrate when you get home, okay? We'll take you out to dinner at that nice restaurant you like." "But Dad, it won't be the same. I want you there when I walk across the stage. I want you to see me get my diploma. I want to share this moment with you." "I know, sweetheart. I'm sorry, but family comes first, and Marcus really needs us right now." I hung up and cried for an hour. My roommate Sage found me on my bed with red eyes and tissues everywhere. "What's wrong?" she asked, sitting down next to me. I told her everything. about the dog party, about Marcus always coming first, about how my parents never seemed to think I was as important as my brother. Sage got mad. Really mad. That's horrible, Riley. It's your graduation. How can they choose a dog party over their daughter's graduation? Because I'm not the golden child, I said sadly. Marcus has always been their favorite. He's the one who was good at sports. He's the one who made friends easily. He's the one who never caused any problems. I'm just the quiet one who reads too much and keeps to herself. Sage hugged me tight. You know what? My family will be there tomorrow and will cheer extra loud for you. You don't need them to make this day special, but I did need them. Even though they had let me down so many times before, I still needed my family to be proud of me. I still needed to feel like I mattered to them. Now, sitting in the graduation ceremony, I felt completely alone. My best friend Sage's family had saved me a seat with them, and I was grateful. Mrs. Rodriguez kept smiling at me and taking pictures like I was her own daughter, but it wasn't the same. I wanted my mom taking those pictures. I wanted my dad telling me how proud he was. I wanted Marcus there, even if he spent the whole time on his phone. The dean walked up to the big microphone at the front of the stage. He was a tall man with gray hair and a kind face. He looked out at all of us graduates and smiled. Ladies and gentlemen, he said in a loud, clear voice, welcome to our graduation ceremony. Today we celebrate these amazing young people who have worked so hard to earn their degrees. Everyone clapped and cheered. I tried to smile, but my heart still hurt thinking about those empty seats. Before we begin handing out diplomas, the dean continued, I have a very special announcement to make. I wiped my eyes with a tissue and tried to focus. At least the ceremony was starting. Soon I could walk across that stage, get my diploma, and go home. Maybe I could just pretend this day never happened. Today, we have graduates who have shown incredible strength and determination, the dean said. Young people who overcame challenges that would have stopped most others. Students who worked multiple jobs while keeping perfect grades. Graduates who succeeded despite difficult situations at home. I wondered who he was talking about. There were probably lots of students here who had worked hard and faced challenges. But then the dean said something that made my heart start beating fast. Before we continue with our ceremony, I want one very special graduate to know that there are people here who see your strength, your hard work, and your worth. You are not alone. You are loved. And you are exactly where you belong. I looked around the big room, confused. Who was he talking about? And why did I have the strangest feeling that something was about to change forever? The dean smiled and looked right at my section of graduates. For just a second, I thought he was looking directly at me. But that was impossible. The dean didn't even know who I was. Or did he? I shook my head and told myself I was being silly. The dean was just making a nice speech to all the graduates. He wasn't talking about me specifically. I was just feeling sorry for myself because my family wasn't here. But I couldn't stop thinking about those empty seats. And I couldn't stop thinking about how my family always treated me like I didn't matter as much as Marcus. Let me tell you about my brother, Marcus, so you understand why my family always puts him first. Marcus is 3 years older than me, and from the day I was born, he was the star of our family. He was the first grandchild on both sides. My grandparents thought he was perfect. Mom and Dad thought he was a genius baby who could do no wrong. Marcus walked when he was 10 months old. He talked in full sentences before he was 2. He learned to read before he started kindergarten. Everyone said he was so smart, so special, so amazing. When I came along 3 years later, I was just the second kid, the backup child, the one who came after the perfect first baby. I was quiet, where Marcus was loud and funny. I liked to read books and draw pictures, while Marcus played football and made friends with everyone in the neighborhood. At family dinners, everyone wanted to hear about Marcus's games or his job at the bank. When I tried to share news about my art projects or my good grades, the conversation always went back to Marcus, somehow. That's nice, Riley, Mom would say when I told her I made the honor roll again. Did you know Marcus got promoted to assistant manager at work? He's the youngest person they've ever given that job to. Isn't that wonderful? And then everyone would start talking about how responsible Marcus was, how hardworking, how successful. Meanwhile, I would sit there feeling invisible. It hurt every time, but I got used to it. I learned to be proud of myself because no one else seemed to notice what I did. When I won the writing contest in high school, I celebrated alone in my room. When I got accepted to college with a partial scholarship, I took myself out for ice cream. When I made the dean's list every semester, I didn't even bother telling my parents because I knew they would just say, "That's nice," and change the subject. Marcus wasn't mean to me on purpose. He just lived in a world where everything came easily to him. Sports, school, friends, jobs, it all just worked out for Marcus. He never had to try as hard as I did. He never had to wonder if his parents loved him. He never had to work 2 jobs to pay for college because mom and dad helped him with all his expenses. 3 years ago, Marcus adopted Biscuit from the animal shelter. The dog became his whole world overnight. He posted pictures of Biscuit on social media every single day. He bought the dog expensive toys and designer clothes. He took Biscuit to a fancy doggy daycare so the dog wouldn't be lonely while Marcus was at work. My parents thought it was the most wonderful thing in the world. "Marcus is so responsible," Mom would say to anyone who would listen. "He takes such good care of that dog. He's going to make a great father someday." "Look how much Biscuit loves him," Dad would add, showing pictures to his coworkers. "That dog follows Marcus everywhere. They have such a special bond." I like Biscuit too. He was a sweet dog who always wagged his tail when he saw me. But the way my family talked about Marcus and Biscuit, you would think my brother had saved the dog from a burning building instead of just adopting him from a nice animal shelter. When Marcus's girlfriend Emma broke up with him last month, it was like the world ended for my family. Marcus called Mom, crying, and said he didn't know what he would do without Biscuit. He said the dog was the only thing keeping him from falling apart completely. That's when Mom decided they needed to throw Biscuit a birthday party to cheer Marcus up. "It's not really about the dog," Mom explained to me over the phone when I asked why they were spending so much money on a party for a pet. "It's about showing Marcus that we support him during this hard time. He's been so depressed since Emma left. We just want him to smile again." "What about supporting me during my hard time?" I wanted to ask. College was hard. Working 2 jobs while going to school full-time was hard. Having no money for new clothes or fun trips with friends was hard. Living on rice and beans for weeks because I couldn't afford groceries was hard. But I never complained because I knew my parents were already helping me by letting me live at home during summer breaks. I didn't want to seem ungrateful. I thought about calling Marcus directly to ask him to talk to our parents. Maybe if he knew how much my graduation meant to me, he would tell them to come. Maybe he would say that Biscuit's party could wait one day. But Marcus and I had never been close like that. We were too different, and there were too many years of him getting all the attention between us. We were polite to each other, but we didn't share our feelings or ask each other for help. Sitting in that graduation ceremony, watching other families celebrate their children, I realized something sad. I had spent my whole life trying to earn the love and attention that Marcus got just for existing. I had worked twice as hard to get half the recognition. I had been the perfect daughter. Good grades, no trouble, never asking for much. And it still wasn't enough to get my family to show up for me on the most important day of my life. The dean was still talking at the front of the room, but I was lost in my own thoughts. I wondered if my family was having fun at Biscuit's party right now. I wondered if they had remembered to buy the special dog cake Mom mentioned. I wondered if they were thinking about me at all, or if they had completely forgotten that today was my graduation. I imagined them in our backyard, laughing and taking pictures of Biscuit wearing a little birthday hat. I imagined the neighbors coming over to pet the dog and tell Marcus what a good dog owner he was. I imagined Mom posting photos on Facebook with captions like, "Celebrating our special boy's birthday." Meanwhile, I was sitting here alone, trying not to cry in front of hundreds of strangers. But then the dean said something that made me snap back to attention. Something that made my heart start racing again. "Today we have a graduate who has shown extraordinary courage in the face of personal challenges," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the big room. "This student worked multiple jobs while maintaining a perfect grade point average. This student overcame obstacles that would have stopped most people. And this student did it all while dealing with a situation at home that no young person should have to face alone." My mouth fell open. Was he talking about me? How could he possibly know about my family situation? How could he know that I worked 2 jobs? How could he know about the problems at home? I looked around at the other graduates near me. They all seemed confused too. like they were wondering who the dean was talking about. Before we continue with the ceremony, the dean said, "I want this special graduate to know that there are people here who see your strength, your determination, and your worth. You are not alone." I felt like I couldn't breathe. The dean had to be talking about me, but how did he know so much about my life? And what did he mean when he said I wasn't alone? I felt more alone than I had ever felt in my entire life. I looked around the big room, searching the crowd for answers. And that's when I saw something that made my heart stop. In the back corner of the room, almost hidden behind a pillar, was someone I didn't recognize. An elderly woman with silver hair and kind eyes. She was looking right at me, and she was crying, but not sad tears. Happy tears. Who was she? And why was she looking at me like she knew me? I stared at the elderly woman, my heart beating so fast I thought everyone around me could hear it. She had gentle eyes and was wearing a pretty blue dress. She looked like someone's grandmother, but not anyone I knew. When our eyes met across the room, she smiled and wiped away her tears. Then she did something that confused me even more. She put her hand over her heart and mouthed the words, "I'm so proud of you." I looked around to see if she was talking to someone else, but there was no one behind me. She was definitely looking at me. But that was impossible. I had never seen this woman before in my life. The dean finished his speech, and the ceremony continued as normal. They started calling names alphabetically. I tried to focus on what was happening, but I kept looking back at the mysterious woman. Every time I glanced her way, she was still watching me with that same loving expression. When they got to the C's, I heard my name loud and clear. Riley Chen. I stood up on shaky legs and walked across the stage. The dean shook my hand and gave me my diploma. For a second, he looked right into my eyes and said quietly, "Congratulations, Riley. Today is just the beginning." Just the beginning of what? I wanted to ask, but there were hundreds of other graduates waiting behind me. As I walked across that stage, I heard someone cheering louder than anyone else in the whole room. It wasn't Sage's family who were also clapping for me. This was someone else, someone with an older voice who was crying and cheering at the same time. I looked toward the back corner where the elderly woman had been standing, and there she was, clapping her hands above her head with tears streaming down her face. She looked so happy, like she was watching her own granddaughter graduate. But I didn't have a grandmother. Both of my grandmothers had died before I was born. At least that's what my parents had always told me. After the ceremony, while everyone was taking pictures and hugging their families, I walked around campus looking for the woman, but she had disappeared. It was like she had never been there at all. Sage's family took lots of pictures with me and told me how proud they were. Mrs. Rodriguez even bought me flowers and treated me like I was part of their family. I was grateful for their kindness, but I couldn't stop thinking about the mysterious woman. I decided to walk around campus one last time before packing up my dorm room. Tomorrow I would move back home for the summer while I looked for a teaching job. I wanted to remember this place where I had been happy, where professors knew my name and cared about my ideas. I was sitting on my favorite bench by the library when someone sat down next to me. "Congratulations, Riley." I turned and saw Professor Martinez, my English literature teacher from last semester. She was a kind woman in her 50s who had always encouraged my writing. She was one of the few people who made me feel like my thoughts and opinions mattered. "Thank you, Professor Martinez. I'm surprised you came to the graduation ceremony." She smiled, but it was a sad smile. "Of course I came. You're one of the most talented students I've ever taught, and one of the strongest." Strong? I don't feel very strong right now. My family didn't even come to see me graduate. Professor Martinez was quiet for a moment, like she was thinking carefully about what to say next. "Riley, I need to tell you something. About a month ago, your brother Marcus came to see me." My stomach dropped. "Marcus? My brother Marcus came here, to the college?" "Yes. He was looking for you, but you were in class. He seemed very upset about something. He told me about your family situation, about how your parents always favor him and ignore your accomplishments. He said he felt terrible about it, but didn't know how to fix it." I stared at her in complete shock. Marcus knew? All this time, I thought he was completely unaware of how our parents treated me differently. I thought he just assumed everyone got the same attention he did. He told me about your graduation, Professor Martinez continued. He said your parents were planning to skip it for his dog's birthday party, and he was trying to figure out how to convince them to come. He seemed really upset about the whole situation. But they didn't come, I said. So he must not have tried very hard to change their minds. Professor Martinez shook her head. Riley, there's more. Marcus also told me something else about your family that I think you need to know. Something about why your parents have always treated you differently. My heart started racing again. What do you mean? What could there be about my family that I don't know? He said your parents have been keeping a secret from you your whole life. A secret about why they've always seemed to love him more. Why they've always put his needs first. He said it wasn't fair to you, but he was scared to tell you the truth himself. I felt dizzy, like the world was spinning around me. Professor Martinez, what secret? What are you talking about? She took my hand gently. Riley, I think your family situation is more complicated than you realize. Marcus told me that your parents, well, he said there's something about your birth, about your place in the family, that you don't know. I don't understand. What could there be about my birth? I know when I was born. I've seen pictures of myself as a baby. Have you, though? Have you really seen your birth certificate, or just been told what's on it? Have you seen hospital pictures from when you were born, or just pictures from when you were older? My mind was spinning. I tried to think back to my baby pictures. Now that she mentioned it, the earliest pictures I could remember seeing were from when I was maybe 6 months old. I had never seen newborn hospital pictures like some of my friends had. Professor Martinez, please just tell me what Marcus said. She looked uncomfortable, like she was sharing something she shouldn't. Riley, I don't think it's my place to tell you this, but I will say that Marcus loves you more than you know. He's been trying to protect you while also trying to figure out how to make things right. The reason he didn't convince your parents to come today, it's because he's planning something bigger, something that he hopes will change everything. What do you mean he's planning something? But Professor Martinez was already standing up. I've probably said too much already. Just know that today isn't over yet. And the dean's announcement earlier? That wasn't random, Riley. Marcus has been working behind the scenes for weeks to make sure someone recognized your achievements, even if your parents couldn't be here. Wait, what? Marcus arranged for the dean to make that speech? She started to walk away, then turned back. Riley, sometimes the people who love us most have to make hard choices. Your brother is trying to do the right thing, even though it's complicated. Trust me when I say that your graduation day isn't over yet. I sat there alone on the bench, my mind racing with a million questions. What secret was my family keeping from me? Why had Marcus come to my professor instead of talking to me directly? What did she mean when she said my graduation day wasn't over? And who was that elderly woman who had been watching me with such love in her eyes? My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Marcus. Riley, I know you're probably hurt and angry about today. I know Mom and Dad should have been there. But please come home. There's something we need to talk about. Something I should have told you years ago. I stared at the message, my hands shaking. Part of me wanted to ignore it and stay at school forever. But another part of me needed answers. I needed to know what secret my family had been keeping, and why Marcus was finally ready to tell me the truth. I typed back, I'm coming home now. As I walked across campus toward my car, I had no idea that the next few hours would change everything I thought I knew about my life, my family, and myself. But first, I had to drive home and face whatever truth my family had been hiding from me for 22 years. The drive home from college usually took 2 hours, but that day it felt like the longest trip of my life. My mind kept spinning with questions about what Professor Martinez had said. What secret could my family possibly have kept from me for my entire life? I thought about my childhood, looking for clues I might have missed. Had there been signs that something was different about me, about my place in the family? As I drove through the familiar countryside, I started remembering things that had never made sense before, like how I looked nothing like my parents or Marcus. They all had dark hair and brown eyes, while I had lighter brown hair with golden streaks and green eyes. When people mentioned it, Mom would just laugh and say I looked like my great-grandmother on Dad's side. I never questioned it, because why would I? But now I was questioning everything. I thought about how I had always felt different, like I didn't quite belong in my own family. I told myself, It was just because Marcus and I had such different personalities. He was outgoing and confident while I was quiet and thoughtful. But maybe it was more than that. Maybe there was a real reason why I felt like an outsider. I remembered family gatherings where relatives would talk about how Marcus had dad's nose or mom's smile, but no one ever said I looked like anyone. They would just pat my head and say I was pretty, then go back to talking about how much Marcus resembled everyone else in the family. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Sage. Riley, how are you feeling? I'm so sorry. Your family didn't come today. That was really unfair. Thanks, Sage. Actually, something weird is happening. My professor told me that Marcus has been keeping some kind of family secret from me. I'm driving home now to find out what it is. A family secret? What kind of secret? I don't know yet, but apparently it explains why my parents have always treated me differently. And Marcus arranged for the dean to make that special announcement at graduation. Sage was quiet for a moment. Riley, are you sure you want to know? Sometimes secrets are kept for good reasons. Sometimes the truth can hurt more than not knowing. I have to know, I said firmly. I've spent my whole life feeling like I don't matter to my family. If there's a reason why, I need to understand it. I can't keep living like this, always wondering what's wrong with me. Okay, but promise me you'll call me later, no matter what happens. Whatever the secret is, you don't have to deal with it alone. After I hung up with Sage, I kept driving through the countryside toward home. The sun was setting, painting the sky pink and orange. Under normal circumstances, it would have been a beautiful end to my graduation day. Instead, I felt like I was driving towards something that would change my life forever. I thought about that elderly woman at graduation again. The way she had looked at me with such love and pride. The way she had said, "I'm so proud of you." Like she actually knew me. Who could she have been? And why did Marcus's text say there was more I needed to know? As I got closer to home, I started feeling nervous. What if the secret was something terrible? What if I found out something that would make everything even worse between me and my family? But then I thought about how lonely I had felt sitting in that graduation ceremony with empty seats where my family should have been. How could anything be worse than feeling unloved and unimportant for my entire life? I pulled into our driveway just as the streetlights were coming on. Our house looked normal from the outside, a small 2-story house with a front porch and Mom's flower garden. But as I sat in my car looking at it, everything felt different, like I was seeing it with new eyes. Through the living room window, I could see the soft glow of the television. There were no signs of a birthday party for Biscuit. No decorations in the yard, no neighbors' cars, no evidence of the celebration that had been more important than my graduation. That's when it hit me. Professor Martinez had said that Marcus was planning something, that he was trying to make things right. What if there had never been a dog birthday party at all? What if that was just an excuse my parents used, because they were too scared to face something else? I took a deep breath and walked up to the front porch. Before I could even knock, the door opened. Marcus stood there, and I was shocked by how he looked. His eyes were red like he'd been crying, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. This wasn't the confident, happy-go-lucky brother I was used to seeing. He looked scared and sad and older somehow. "Riley," he said quietly, "thank you for coming home." "Where's the party?" I asked, looking around. "Where's Biscuit's big birthday celebration that was so important you all had to miss my graduation?" Marcus looked down at his feet. He couldn't meet my eyes. "There was no party, Riley. There never was going to be a party." "What do you mean?" "Mom said you were throwing Biscuit a birthday party and that's why they couldn't come to my graduation." "I know what Mom told you," Marcus said, still not looking at me. "But Riley, we need to talk. Mom and Dad are in the living room waiting for us. It's time you knew the truth about everything." My heart was pounding as I followed him into the house. The living room felt smaller than I remembered. Mom and Dad were sitting on the couch, and they both looked as upset as Marcus did. Biscuit was lying on his dog bed in the corner, completely unaware that he was supposedly the reason my family had missed the most important day of my life. "Riley, honey," Mom said, her voice shaking. "Please sit down. We have something very important to tell you." I looked at their faces, all scared, all guilty, all sad. Something cold settled in my stomach. "Is someone sick?" I asked, suddenly terrified. Is someone dying? Is that why you've all been acting so strange? Dad shook his head quickly. No one is sick, Riley. But Marcus is right. We should have told you this years ago. We thought we were protecting you, but now we see that we were wrong. I sat down in the chair across from them, my whole body tense with anxiety. Whatever they were about to tell me was big. Life-changing big. Marcus sat on the edge of the coffee table, facing me. Riley, the reason Mom and Dad didn't come to your graduation today, it wasn't really about Biscuit's birthday. That was just an excuse because they were too scared to face what today really meant. I don't understand. Mom started crying softly. Riley, sweetheart, your graduation day was hard for us because it made us realize that you're all grown up now, and we've been putting off this conversation for too long. What conversation? What are you all talking about? Marcus took a deep breath. His hands were shaking. Riley, there's something about our family, about you that you need to know. Something that explains everything about why you've always felt different, why you've always felt like you didn't quite fit in. I looked around at my family, all of them staring at me with expressions of guilt, sadness, and fear. Just tell me, I whispered. Whatever it is, just tell me. Marcus looked me straight in the eyes, and I could see tears forming. Riley, he said in a voice so quiet, I almost couldn't hear him. You're not our biological sister. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. For a moment, I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't understand what he had just said. What do you mean I'm not your biological sister? Marcus looked at our parents, then back at me. His eyes were full of tears now. Riley, you're adopted. We adopted you when you were 3 days old. The room started spinning around me. I gripped the arms of my chair to keep from falling over. That's impossible. I've lived with you my whole life. I have baby pictures. I have memories of growing up here. You do have memories, Dad said gently. You've been our daughter since you were 3 days old, but you weren't born to us. We wanted to tell you, Mom said through her tears. We planned to tell you when you were older. But then years went by, and it seemed like you were so happy. We didn't want to confuse you or make you feel different. Different? I laughed. But it came out bitter and angry. I felt different my entire life. I felt like I didn't belong, like I wasn't really part of this family. And now I know why. Marcus leaned forward in his chair. Riley, that's not true. You are part of this family. You've always been part of this family. No, I haven't. I stood up, pacing around the room like a caged animal. You've always been the favorite, the golden child, the one who got all the attention and love. Now I know it's because you're their real son, and I'm just some kid they took in. That's not why, Dad said firmly. Riley, we love you just as much as we love Marcus. Then why did you treat me differently? Why did Marcus always come first? Why did you miss every important event in my life, but never missed anything for him? The room was quiet, except for Mom's soft crying. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall and Biscuit breathing heavily in his sleep. Finally, Marcus spoke, because they felt guilty. Everyone turned to look at him. What do you mean? I asked. Marcus ran his hands through his hair, making it stick up in all directions. Riley, I've known about the adoption since I was 10 years old. I overheard Mom and Dad talking about it one night when they thought I was asleep. And I've watched how they've treated you differently ever since. Marcus, Mom said in a warning voice. Don't. No, Mom. She deserves to know the truth. All of it. He looked at me with serious eyes. Riley, Mom and Dad didn't treat you differently because they loved you less. They treated you differently because they felt guilty about the circumstances of your adoption. My heart was racing so fast I thought it might explode. What circumstances? What are you talking about? Marcus looked at our parents again, like he was asking for permission. When they didn't say anything, he turned back to me. Riley, your birth mother didn't choose to give you up for adoption. She died in a car accident 3 days after you were born. You were in the car with her, but you survived without any injuries. You had no other family, so you were placed for adoption. I sank back into my chair, feeling like all the air had been sucked out of my lungs. My birth mother died? Yes, Mom whispered. Her name was Sarah Chen. She was only 19 years old. Chen? That's why my last name is Chen? Dad nodded. We decided to keep your birth name as your last name, so you would always have that connection to your birth mother. But why did you feel guilty about that? It wasn't your fault she died. Marcus looked at our parents again. There was something in his expression that told me there was more to the story. Tell her the rest, he said quietly. Mom was shaking her head, but Dad spoke up. Riley, your birth mother was in that car accident because she was rushing to the hospital. She had been having complications after your birth, but she didn't have insurance and couldn't afford proper medical care. If she had gotten help sooner, you think she might not have died, I finished. We'll never know for sure, Dad said sadly. But when we adopted you, we promised ourselves that we would give you everything your birth mother couldn't. We would make sure you never wanted for anything, that you would have every opportunity she couldn't give you. But we got so worried about making sure you had everything you needed, that we forgot to make sure you felt loved, Mom added, wiping her eyes with a tissue. And Marcus was easier for us. He was our biological child, so we didn't feel the same pressure to be perfect with him. I stared at them in shock. So you gave him all your love and attention because it felt natural, and you gave me everything else because you felt obligated. That's not how we meant it, Dad said desperately. We love you, Riley. We've always loved you. But you loved me like a responsibility, not like a daughter. The room was silent again. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, waiting to see how I would react. Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me wanted to run away and never come back. But mostly, I just felt empty. Finally, Marcus spoke again. Riley, there's one more thing you need to know. The reason I didn't convince them to come to your graduation today. I looked at him, exhausted by all these revelations. What? I've been trying to get them to tell you the truth for months. When I found out they were going to miss your graduation, I gave them an ultimatum. I told them that if they didn't tell you the truth today, I would tell you myself. I said they could either come to your graduation and face the fact that you're grown up and deserve to know who you really are, or they could stay home and live with the consequences of their cowardice. You made them choose between coming to my graduation and keeping their secret. I thought if they chose to come to your graduation, it would mean they were ready to be honest with you. But when they chose to stay home and make up that story about Biscuit's birthday party, I knew they were still too scared to face the truth. I felt a mixture of gratitude and anger toward Marcus. He had tried to help me, but he had also let our parents hurt me one more time. Why didn't you just tell me yourself years ago? Because I was a kid when I found out, and then I was a teenager, and then I was a young adult who didn't know how to handle something so big. I kept thinking they would eventually tell you themselves. I kept hoping they would do the right thing. I looked around at my family, the people who had raised me but had never made me feel like I truly belonged. Now I understood why. I wasn't their daughter by choice. I was their daughter by obligation. They had taken me in because no one else would, and they had spent 22 years trying to convince themselves that they were doing it out of love instead of duty. I need some air, I said, standing up and heading for the door. Riley, wait, Mom called after me. Please don't leave. We need to talk about this more. But I was already walking out the door and into the night, my mind spinning with everything I had just learned about my life, my family, and myself. My name was Riley Chen, but I wasn't really a Chen. My birth mother, Sarah, had died when I was 3 days old, and this family had taken me in out of guilt and obligation. Everything I thought I knew about myself was a lie. As I walked down the dark street away from the house, I wondered who I really was, and I wondered if I would ever feel like I belonged anywhere. I walked around our neighborhood for hours that night, trying to make sense of everything I had just learned. The streets were quiet, and the only sounds were my footsteps on the sidewalk and the distant hum of air conditioners keeping families cool in their homes. My birth mother's name was Sarah Chen. She had been 19 when she died, barely older than I was now. She had died because she couldn't afford proper medical care after giving birth to me. The unfairness of it made me angry and sad at the same time. I thought about all the times I had felt like I didn't belong. All the times I had wondered why my parents seemed to love Marcus more easily than they loved me. Now I knew it wasn't because there was something wrong with me. It was because they were carrying around guilt and fear about my adoption, and they had let those feelings poison their relationship with me. My phone kept buzzing with text messages from Marcus, Mom, and Dad, all asking me to come home so we could talk more, but I wasn't ready. I needed time to process this information and figure out how I felt about it. I found myself walking to the park where Marcus and I used to play when we were kids. There was a bench by the pond where I used to sit and read while he played on the playground equipment. I sat down on that same bench and looked up at the stars. For the first time in my life, some things made sense. I understood why I had always felt like an outsider in my own family. I understood why my parents seemed to walk on eggshells around me while being completely relaxed with Marcus. I understood why they had never seemed truly comfortable celebrating my achievements, because my successes reminded them that I was growing up and would eventually learn the truth about my origins. But understanding didn't make the pain go away. If anything, it made it worse. For 22 years, I had blamed myself for not being good enough to earn my parents' natural affection. Now I knew that their distance had nothing to do with my worth as a person, and everything to do with their own fears and guilt. I also felt angry at Marcus. He had known the truth for 12 years and had never told me. I understood that he was in a difficult position, caught between his parents and his sister. But 12 years was a long time to watch your sister suffer and stay silent. My phone rang. It was Sage. Riley, how did it go? Did you find out what the secret was? I told her everything about the adoption, about my birth mother's death, about my parents' guilt and fear. She listened without interrupting, occasionally making small sounds of sympathy or shock. Oh my God, Riley. That's incredible. How are you feeling? I don't know, angry, sad, confused, relieved? All of those things at once. Relieved? Yeah, it's strange, but part of me feels relieved to finally understand why I always felt so different. It wasn't because there was something wrong with me. It was because there was something my family wasn't telling me. That makes sense. What are you going to do now? I don't know. I can't go back to that house tonight. I can't face them yet. Do you want to come stay with me? My family would be happy to have you. I considered it, but I knew I needed to face this situation head on. Running away to Sage's house would just be postponing the difficult conversations I needed to have with my family. Thanks, but I think I need to go home eventually. I just need a little more time to think. After I hung up with Sage, I continued walking around the neighborhood. I passed the house where my third grade teacher, Mrs. Johnson, used to live. I remembered being so proud when I won the school writing contest in her class, and how she had made such a big deal about it. But when I came home to tell my parents, they were busy helping Marcus with a science project and barely looked up when I shared my news. Now I wondered if my birth mother, Sarah, had been a writer. I wondered what she had been like, what her dreams were, what she had wanted for me. I wondered if she would have been proud of my graduation today, if she would have been the kind of mother who never missed important moments in my life. As I walked past Marcus's old elementary school, I thought about all the soccer games and school events my parents had attended for him. They had never missed anything for Marcus, but they had missed so many things for me. At the time, I thought it was because they loved him more. Now I realized it might have been because loving him felt natural and easy, while loving me required them to confront their own complicated feelings about adoption, loss, and responsibility. I also thought about the dean's announcement at graduation earlier that day. Professor Martinez had said that Marcus had been working behind the scenes to make sure someone recognized my achievements. What had he done exactly? How had he arranged for the dean to make that speech about a student who had overcome personal challenges? And who was that elderly woman who had been watching me with such love in her eyes? The woman who had cried happy tears when I walked across the stage. The woman who had disappeared before I could talk to her. My phone buzzed with another text from Marcus. Riley, I know you're hurt and angry. I know I should have told you years ago, but please come home when you're ready. There's still more you need to know. The story doesn't end with your adoption. More. What else could there possibly be? I looked at my watch. It was almost midnight. I had been walking for 3 hours, and I was exhausted both physically and emotionally. I knew I couldn't stay out all night, and I knew that avoiding my family wouldn't solve anything. But I also knew that I wasn't the same person who had left that house 3 hours ago. Finding out I was adopted had changed something fundamental about how I saw myself and my place in the world. I started walking back toward the house, my mind still spinning with questions. Who had Sarah Chen been? What had she been like? Did I have any other biological relatives out there? And what did Marcus mean when he said there was still more I needed to know? As I approached our house, I could see that all the lights were still on. My family was waiting up for me, probably worried sick. Despite everything that had happened, despite all the years of feeling unloved and unimportant, they were still my family. They were the people who had raised me, who had been there for every scraped knee and hurt feeling, even if they hadn't always done it perfectly. But now I knew they weren't my only family. Somewhere out there, I had a whole history I knew nothing about. A birth mother who had loved me enough to carry me for 9 months, even though she was just a teenager with no money and no support. Maybe I had grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, a whole family tree I had never known existed. I thought about Sarah Chen, the 19-year-old girl who had died trying to get medical help after giving birth to me. I wished I could have known her. I wished I could have thanked her for giving me life, even though it cost her own. I took a deep breath and walked up to the front door. Through the window, I could see my adoptive family sitting in the living room, still in the same positions they had been in when I left. They looked tired and worried and sad. It was time to hear the rest of the story. It was time to find out what other secrets my family had been keeping, and what Marcus meant when he said the story didn't end with my adoption. I opened the front door and stepped inside, ready to learn whatever truth was waiting for me next. When I walked into the living room, I found my family exactly where I had left them 3 hours earlier. Mom and Dad were still on the couch, and Marcus was still sitting on the coffee table. They all looked up at me with relief and worry when I came in. "Riley," Mom said, standing up quickly. "Thank goodness you're back. We were so worried about you." "I'm okay," I said, though I wasn't sure that was entirely true. Marcus said there was more I needed to know. Marcus nodded and gestured for me to sit back down. "Riley, the adoption isn't the only thing we haven't told you. There's something else about your birth mother, about why Mom and Dad felt so responsible for you." I sat down, bracing myself for another shock. At this point, I wasn't sure I could handle any more big revelations about my life. "What is it?" Dad cleared his throat nervously. "Riley, your birth mother, Sarah, she didn't die in a random car accident. She was driving to the hospital because she was trying to get help, but she was also driving to meet us." "Meet you? What do you mean?" Mom's voice was barely a whisper. "Riley, we knew your birth mother before you were born. We were supposed to adopt you through a private arrangement she had made with us." My heart stopped beating for a second. "You knew her?" "We had been trying to have another baby for 3 years after Marcus was born," Dad explained. "We had fertility problems, and the doctors told us it was unlikely we would be able to have another biological child, so we decided to look into adoption. We were introduced to Sarah through a friend of a friend," Mom continued. "She was 18, pregnant, and couldn't afford to raise a baby on her own. Her parents had kicked her out when they found out she was pregnant. She had no money, no support system, nothing. We met with her several times during her pregnancy," Dad said. "We talked about the adoption, about our hopes for the baby, about what kind of life we wanted to give you. We grew to care about Sarah very much. She was smart, funny, and incredibly brave for someone so young." I felt tears starting to form in my eyes. "So you knew my birth mother personally?" "Yes," Mom said, her own tears falling freely now. "And the night you were born, Sarah called us from the hospital. She said she was having complications, but couldn't afford the medical care she needed. We told her we would pay for everything, that she should get whatever help she needed and not worry about the cost. But she didn't get help soon enough," Marcus added quietly. Dad nodded sadly. "By the time she got to the hospital 3 days later, it was too late. She died from complications that could have been prevented if she had gotten proper medical care immediately after you were born." I stared at them in shock. So she died because she was trying to be strong and independent, instead of asking for help. "We think so," Mom said through her tears. "We had told her we would pay for her medical expenses." But Sarah was proud. She didn't want to be a burden on anyone. She tried to handle the complications on her own until it became a life-threatening emergency. "That's why we felt so guilty," Dad explained. "We felt like if we had insisted on paying for her medical care from the very beginning, if we had been more involved in making sure she was okay after you were born, she might still be alive today." I sat there trying to process this information. My birth mother hadn't just died in a random accident. She had died because she was trying to be independent and strong, traits that I recognized in myself. She had died partly because my adoptive parents hadn't been assertive enough about helping her when she needed it most. There's one more thing, Marcus said gently. Riley, Sarah left something for you. What do you mean? Mom got up and went to a cabinet in the corner of the room. She pulled out a small wooden box that looked old and well cared for. She brought it over to me with shaking hands. Sarah gave this to us the last time we saw her, about a week before you were born. She said it was for you to have when you were old enough to understand. With trembling fingers, I opened the box. Inside was a letter written on notebook paper, a small silver necklace, and a photograph of a young woman with light brown hair and green eyes, who looked exactly like me. That's Sarah, Mom said softly. That's your birth mother. I picked up the photograph and stared at it. It was like looking at a picture of myself from another time. We had the same eyes, the same smile, the same way of tilting our heads slightly to the left. For the first time in my life, I was looking at someone who shared my DNA, someone who looked like me. She was beautiful, I whispered. She was, Dad agreed. And she loved you so much, Riley. Even though she knew she couldn't keep you, she loved you with all her heart. I picked up the letter with shaking hands. It was written in neat, careful handwriting. Dear baby, it began. I don't know if you're a boy or a girl yet, but I already love you so much. I'm writing this letter because I want you to know that giving you up for adoption is the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but I'm doing it because I want you to have the best life possible. I had to stop reading because tears were blurring my vision. This was a message from my birth mother, written specifically for me before I was even born. I met your adoptive parents, and they are wonderful people, the letter continued. They will give you everything I can't. A stable home, a good education, opportunities I could never provide. But I want you to know that you are not unwanted. You are loved. You are wanted. I'm giving you up because I love you, not because I don't. I looked up at my family through my tears. She chose you specifically to be my parents. Yes, Mom said. She interviewed several families, but she chose us. She said she felt like we would understand how precious you were. I continued reading the letter. I hope you grow up to be strong and independent, but I also hope you let people help you when you need it. I hope you follow your dreams and don't let anyone tell you that you're not good enough. I hope you know that somewhere out there, your birth mother is thinking about you and loving you every day. The letter was signed simply Sarah, with a small heart drawn next to her name. I picked up the necklace. It was a simple silver chain with a small pendant in the shape of a star. She said, the star was to remind you that even when you can't see someone, they're still there, still shining. Mom explained. She wanted you to know that even though she couldn't be with you, her love for you would always be there. I put the necklace on, and it felt like a warm hug from someone I had never met, but who had loved me enough to make the ultimate sacrifice. Why didn't you give this to me sooner? I asked. We were scared, Dad admitted. We were afraid that if you knew about Sarah, you would love her more than us. We were afraid you would want to find her family, or that you would blame us for not saving her. We realize now that we were wrong, Mom added. We should have told you about Sarah years ago. We should have helped you understand that you can love and honor your birth mother while still being our daughter. I looked around at my family, at Mom and Dad, who had raised me despite their fears and mistakes, and at Marcus, who had finally found the courage to push them to tell me the truth. I understand now why you treated me differently, I said. I understand that you were scared and guilty and didn't know how to handle the situation perfectly. But I need you to understand something too. They all looked at me with hopeful, worried expressions. I am your daughter. I have been your daughter since I was 3 days old, but I'm also Sarah's daughter. I'm both. And instead of letting your guilt about Sarah make you distant from me, you should have let your love for her make you love me more. Mom started crying again, but this time they seemed like tears of relief rather than sadness. We want to do better, she said. We want to be the parents you deserve, and the parents Sarah trusted us to be. It's not too late, I said, and I meant it. I'm 22, but I'm still your daughter. We can still build the relationship we should have had all along. But even as I said those words, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was still something more. Something about that elderly woman at my graduation. Something about the way Marcus had been acting. Marcus, I said, looking at my brother, is there anything else? Any other secrets I should know about? Marcus looked uncomfortable. Like there was something he wanted to say, but wasn't sure if he should. Actually, Riley, he said slowly, there is one more thing. I stared at Marcus, still holding Sarah's letter in my hands. How could there possibly be more? I felt like I had already learned everything there was to know about my past. What else could there be? I asked. Marcus pulled out his phone and looked at it nervously. Riley, do you remember that elderly woman you saw at your graduation today? The one who was crying and cheering for you? My heart started beating faster. You saw her too? Who was she? That's what I need to tell you, Marcus said. Riley, that woman wasn't a stranger. She was there specifically for you. I felt confused and excited at the same time. What do you mean she was there for me? I've never seen her before in my life. Marcus stood up and started pacing around the room, like he was nervous about what he was going to say next. 3 months ago, I hired a private investigator, he said. I knew that learning about your adoption would be hard for you, but I also thought you deserved to know if you had any biological family out there who cared about you. You hired a private investigator to look for my biological family? Yes. And Riley, we found someone. We found Sarah's grandmother. Your biological great-grandmother. I dropped Sarah's letter and stared at Marcus in complete shock. My great-grandmother? She's alive? Her name is Eleanor Chen. She's 83 years old, and she's been searching for you for 22 years. She didn't know what happened to you after the adoption was finalized. I felt like the room was spinning again. She's been looking for me. She never stopped looking, Marcus said. When Sarah died, Eleanor tried to find out what happened to you, but the adoption records were sealed. She hired private investigators over the years, but they could never track you down because Mom and Dad had requested complete privacy. I looked at Mom and Dad. You requested privacy? Why? We were scared, Mom said quietly. We were afraid that if Sarah's family found you, they would try to take you away from us. We thought we were protecting you by keeping the adoption completely private. But we were wrong, Dad added. We should have realized that Sarah's family would want to know you were okay. We should have found a way to let them be part of your life. Marcus sat back down and showed me his phone. There was a video on the screen, footage from my graduation ceremony that I had never seen before. I hired a professional videographer to record your entire graduation, he said. But more than that, I arranged for someone special to be there. He pressed play on the video. I watched myself walk across the stage to receive my diploma, but this video was taken from a different angle than where Sage's family had been sitting. As I watched myself shake the dean's hand, I could hear someone cheering louder than anyone else in the entire auditorium. The camera turned to show the elderly woman I had seen, Eleanor, my great-grandmother. She was in the front row, clapping and crying as she watched me graduate. She was there, I whispered. She was really there. She wouldn't have missed it for the world, Marcus said. When I contacted her and told her when you were graduating, she said she would do anything to be there. Even if she couldn't meet you, she needed to see you succeed. I stared at the video, watching this woman who was my family celebrate my achievement with tears of joy. Where is she now? I asked. She's staying at a hotel about 20 minutes from here, Marcus said. She was hoping to meet you after graduation, but she didn't want to intrude on your family time. She said she just wanted to see you graduate and know that you were okay. She's here right now? She's been here all day? Yes. And Riley, she brought pictures of Sarah. She has stories about your birth mother that no one else can tell you. She has 22 years worth of love and questions and hope. I thought about this woman, my biological great-grandmother, who had been searching for me my entire life. She had come to my graduation without even knowing if she would ever get to meet me. She had just wanted to witness my achievement from afar and know that I was safe and happy. I want to meet her, I said without hesitation. Are you sure? Mom asked. This has been a very overwhelming day for you. Maybe you should wait until tomorrow when you've had time to process everything. No, I said firmly. I've waited 22 years to know about my biological family. I don't want to wait another minute. Marcus was already dialing a number on his phone. I'll call her. She's probably still awake. She told me she was too excited to sleep. While Marcus made the call, I sat holding Sarah's photograph and letter. I thought about how she had chosen my adoptive parents, how she had loved me enough to give me up so I could have a better life. And now I was about to meet her grandmother, the woman who had loved Sarah and had been loving me from a distance for 22 years. She's coming over, Marcus said after hanging up. She'll be here in about 30 minutes. She started crying when I told her you wanted to meet her. I might cry too, I admitted. The next 30 minutes felt like the longest of my life. I kept looking at Sarah's photograph, trying to imagine what her grandmother would be like. Would she see Sarah in me? Would I see Sarah in her? What stories would she tell me about my birth mother? Mom and Dad spent the time apologizing again for keeping so many secrets from me. They promised to be more open and honest going forward, to include Eleanor in our family if that's what I wanted. I appreciated their promises, but I was too focused on meeting my great-grandmother to give them my full attention. When the doorbell finally rang, my heart felt like it was going to jump out of my chest. Marcus went to answer it, and I heard him talking quietly to someone on the front porch. Then he came back into the living room with a gentle smile on his face. "Riley, I'd like you to meet your great-grandmother, Eleanor Chen." An elderly woman walked into our living room, and I immediately saw Sarah in her features. She had the same green eyes, though they were softer with age. She had the same bone structure, the same gentle smile. But when she looked at me, her eyes filled with tears of pure joy. "Oh my goodness," she whispered. "You look exactly like Sarah did when she was your age." I stood up, not sure what to do. Should I hug her? Shake her hand? How do you greet the great-grandmother you never knew existed? Eleanor solved the problem by walking over and pulling me into the warmest hug I had ever received. She smelled like vanilla and lavender, and her embrace felt like coming home to a place I had never been but had always been searching for. "I have been praying for this moment for 22 years, she said into my ear. "I have been hoping and praying that I would get to meet you before I died." We held each other for a long time, both of us crying. When we finally pulled apart, she cupped my face in her soft, wrinkled hands. "You are so beautiful," she said. "And I was so proud watching you graduate today." Sarah would have been so proud. "You were really there? You were really at my graduation?" "I wouldn't have missed it for the world," she said with a smile that looked exactly like Sarah's. "Even if I couldn't meet you, I needed to see you succeed. I needed to see that you grew up happy and strong, just like Sarah wanted." As I looked into Eleanor's eyes, I realized that my graduation day had turned out to be even more special than I had hoped. I had gained not just a diploma, but a whole new understanding of who I was and where I came from. And I had found the missing piece of my family that I never even knew was missing. We spent the next 3 hours talking, and I learned more about my birth mother in those few hours than I had known my entire life. Eleanor told me stories about Sarah's childhood, about her dreams and her personality. She showed me more pictures and shared memories that helped me understand who my birth mother had been as a person. I learned that Sarah had been an honor student, just like me. She had been quiet and thoughtful, preferring books to parties. She had been kind to everyone, especially kids who were picked on or left out. She had volunteered at the local animal shelter and had dreamed of traveling the world someday. "She was only 19 when she died," Eleanor said sadly. "She had so much life ahead of her, so many dreams she never got to pursue. But in a way, she gets to live those dreams through you." I also learned about my biological aunt, Jennifer, and my cousins. Eleanor showed me recent pictures of them, and I could see family resemblances in their faces. Jennifer was a nurse who had never married, and she had adopted 2 girls from foster care, my cousins Mia and Zoe. "Jennifer has been searching for you for years," Eleanor said. "She hired private investigators. She posted on adoption websites. She even appeared on a television show about reuniting families. She never gave up hope of finding you." "Why didn't she find me sooner?" I asked. Eleanor looked uncomfortable for a moment. "Because your adoption records were sealed very tightly, and your adoptive parents had requested complete privacy. It wasn't until Marcus contacted our private investigator that we were able to locate you." I looked over at Marcus, feeling a rush of gratitude and love for my brother. He had orchestrated this entire reunion, even though he knew it would be difficult and complicated for everyone involved. "Marcus, why did you do all this? Why did you work so hard to find my biological family?" Marcus looked down at his hands, suddenly shy. "Because I love you, Riley. Because I've watched you feel like you don't belong for your entire life. And I knew that part of the reason was because you didn't know where you came from. I thought if you could meet your biological family, you might understand that you're not alone in the world. But I wasn't alone. I had you, and Mom and Dad. But we never made you feel like you had us. Marcus said sadly. We all failed you in different ways. Mom and Dad were too scared and guilty to love you properly, and I was too much of a coward to tell you the truth. I thought finding your biological family might help heal some of the damage we caused. I looked around the room at the people who loved me, my adoptive parents who had raised me despite their fears, my brother who had finally found the courage to do the right thing, and my great-grandmother who had never stopped searching for me.
You didn't damage me, I said to Marcus.
Yes, I felt like I didn't belong sometimes. But that wasn't entirely your fault. It was just a hard situation that nobody knew how to handle perfectly. We should have told you about Sarah years ago, Mom said, for what felt like the 100th time that night. We should have helped you understand your history from the beginning. Maybe, I said. But maybe I needed to be an adult to handle this information. Maybe I needed to be strong enough to understand that I can love both families without choosing between them. Eleanor reached over and took my hand in her soft, weathered one. Sarah would be so proud of the woman you've become. She would be proud of your strength, your education, your kindness. She would be proud that you can forgive the people who hurt you and still choose to love them. I want to meet Jennifer and my cousins, I said. I want to know my biological family better. And they want to know you too, Eleanor said with a warm smile. Jennifer is planning to fly out here next weekend if you're interested in meeting her. She's been waiting 22 years for this moment. I nodded eagerly. I'd love that. But I also want you to know, Eleanor continued, that we don't expect anything from you. We don't expect you to suddenly consider us your real family, or to choose us over the people who raised you. We just want to be part of your life in whatever way feels comfortable for you. I looked at Mom and Dad, who were listening to this conversation with expressions of worry and fear on their faces. You don't have to be afraid, I told them. Learning about my biological family doesn't make me love you less. If anything, it makes me appreciate you more. Sarah chose you to be my parents because she trusted you to love me and raise me well. Even though you weren't perfect, you did your best. You gave me a good life, a good education, and a foundation of values that Sarah would have been proud of. Mom started crying again. But this time, they were clearly tears of relief. I just want to understand all parts of myself, I continued. I want to know about Sarah's dreams so I can honor them. I want to know about my biological family so I can understand where some of my traits and interests come from. But you will always be my parents. You will always be the people who raised me and loved me and shaped me into who I am. Dad came over and hugged me tightly. We love you so much, Riley. We should have told you that more often. We should have been at your graduation today. Actually, Marcus said with a small smile. About that. Riley, there's one more thing I need to show you. I looked at him wondering what else there could possibly be. This day had already been full of more surprises than I thought possible. Marcus pulled out his phone again and showed me another video. This one was from a different angle at my graduation ceremony, showing the moment when my name was called. Watch this, he said. In the video, I could see myself walking across the stage to receive my diploma, but this time, I could also see the audience. There was Sage's family cheering for me. There was Eleanor in the front row, crying tears of joy, and there in the back corner of the auditorium was someone else I hadn't noticed before. It was the dean. He wasn't on stage giving the speech. He was in the audience, and he was crying too. The dean was crying? Why? Marcus smiled. Because, Riley, the dean's announcement wasn't just a general speech about hardworking students. It was specifically about you. I told him your story, about the adoption, about how you had worked so hard while feeling unloved, about how your family had let you down. I asked him to make sure you knew that someone saw your worth, even if your adoptive family couldn't be there. I stared at the video in amazement. You arranged for the dean to make that speech about me. I wanted to make sure that on the most important day of your academic life, someone in authority recognized what you had accomplished. I wanted you to know that you mattered, even if Mom and Dad were too scared to show up. As the evening wound down, Eleanor prepared to leave. Before she went, she gave me her phone number and email address, and she made me promise to call her soon. I have 22 years of birthdays and holidays to make up for, she said with a smile. I hope you'll let me spoil you a little bit. I would like that very much, I said. After Eleanor left, I sat with my adoptive family in our living room, all of us emotionally exhausted but somehow closer than we had ever been before. I'm sorry we missed your graduation, Mom said quietly. It's okay, I said, and I truly meant it. My great-grandmother was there, and in a weird way, having this conversation tonight was more meaningful than any graduation ceremony could have been. Marcus smiled. So, no more secrets? No more secrets, we all agreed. For the first time in my life, I felt like I knew exactly who I was and where I belonged. I was Riley Chen, daughter of Sarah Chen and great-granddaughter of Eleanor Chen, adopted daughter of Robert and Linda Martinez, sister to Marcus Martinez. I was a college graduate, a future teacher, a writer, and a young woman who had finally found her place in the world. As I went to bed that night, wearing Sarah's necklace and holding her journal close to my heart, I felt complete. The empty seats at my graduation had led to the most important day of my life, the day I learned that I was never alone, never unloved, and never without family. I opened Sarah's journal to the first page and read her words one more time. Dear baby, I don't know if you're a boy or a girl yet, but I already love you so much. I smiled and whispered into the darkness. I love you too, Sarah. Thank you for choosing the right family for me. Thank you for giving me the best life you could. And thank you for making sure I would never truly be alone. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new conversations with my biological family. But tonight, I was exactly where I belonged, surrounded by love from two families who had both chosen me in their own ways. My graduation day had started with empty seats and a broken heart, but it ended with a full heart and the knowledge that I was loved by more people than I had ever imagined possible. Sometimes the worst days turn out to be the best days in disguise. Sometimes losing what you thought you wanted helps you find what you actually needed. And sometimes the people who love you most have to make hard choices to help you discover who you really are. I was Riley Chen, and I was finally home. Riley's story shows us that sometimes the worst moments in our lives lead to the most beautiful discoveries. She learned that family isn't just about blood, it's about love, understanding, and second chances. I hope Riley's journey touched your heart like it touched mine. Her story reminds us that we all deserve to feel loved and valued, no matter what secrets our past might hold. Before you go, I'd love to know, where are you listening from today? Drop your city or country in the comments below. It always amazes me how these stories bring people together from all around the world. If Riley's story moved you, please hit that like button to help spread this message of hope and belonging to others who might need to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We share stories like this every week because everyone deserves to feel less alone in their struggles. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that matter, stories that remind us to be kinder to each other and to ourselves. Speaking of stories that will touch your heart, make sure to click on the video appearing on your screen right now. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Until next time, remember, you are loved, you belong, and your story matters.